high call series.
Morning, children. So it's a time for us to start a new lesson because we have learned and completed the previous lesson in the last class. So today we are going to start to learn about living and non-living things. So what are we going to learn today? About living and non-living things. So there are so many things around us, isn't it? When we look around us, we can see a lot of things. Birds are there, animals are there, insects are there, then people are there, our own friends are there, their parents are there, teachers are there, then a desk, bench, school building, chair, table, bag, books, bottles, tiffin box, lunch box. So many things are there around us, isn't it? Yes. So there are so many things around us, and some of these things are different from others. Okay. Some things have a life. Okay. Some of these things that we have around us, they have a life in them, and some others do not have a life. Right? So those have life as animals, birds, insects, our friends, teachers, relatives, so on. So friends, relatives, teachers, insects, birds, animals, all these things have a life, and non-living or things with no life, that is better. Okay, they include table, books, desks, then buses, right? Balls with which we play in the ground, then bags, boxes, tiffin box, lunch box, and all, right? So there are so many things around us which doesn't have any life. So some things have life in them, and some things do not have any life in them, right? So some things have life in them, some things do not have a life in them. So these things are there, which has life in them. Those things which have life in them are called living things. So what do we call them? Those things which have a life in them are called living things, and those that do not have a life are called non-living things. Okay, so those things that have life are called living things. Those things that do not have a life are called non-living things. Are we living things or non-living things? Are we living things or non-living things? Yes, we are living things. Okay, we are living things. Right. Now, how is it possible for us to identify living things and non-living things? How is it possible for us to identify living things and non-living things? If there is something in front of us, how is it possible for us to check whether that thing that we have in front of us is a living thing or a non-living thing? Okay, there are some features which are common for all living things. Okay, so living things have got some specific features, and based on that, we can identify whether the things that we have are living or a non-living, right? So what are the features of living things? Now, the first one is living things move. Living things can move from one place to other. For example, we are living things, we can walk from one place to other. Huh? Animals can run from one place to other. Water animals can swim. Birds can fly. Okay? So, all the living things in the world can move from one place to other. We have to move because we may have to go in search of food. We may have to save ourselves. Okay? We have, if somebody attacks us, some enemies also attack us, so as to protect ourselves, we have to move from one place to other. Okay? So most often we will be moving in search of food or protect ourselves from our enemies. Right? So all the things that have this particular capacity to move from one place to other are living things. We know plants are also living things, isn't it? Plants are also living things. Does plants move from one place to other? Is it possible for the plants to move from one place to other? No. Isn't it? So plants are fixed at one particular place, but they also can give some indications related to movements. For example, we have this sunflower, isn't it? Sunflower. So it's so big and it looks like a sun, isn't it? If you observe the sunflowers has a speciality. What is that? Yes, in the morning, the sunflower will face itself towards the sun. In the morning, we can see the sunflower facing towards the sun. In the evening, the sunflower will face towards the sun. So in which direction will the sun be in the morning? Eastern direction, isn't it? In which direction will the sun in the evening? West. So what happens? Is the flower which is facing towards the sun in the east, yes, moves along with the sun, and by the time the sun sets at the west, it will be facing the sun in the western direction. Okay, so that is a movement, right? We are not twisting it, shifting it. The plant itself is moving, isn't it? Then we have a lotus flower, isn't it? Lotus flower. So lotus flower also has a speciality. It blooms in the morning, and by the sunset, it closes back. Okay, so these kinds of movements are there from the plants, which shows they also can move. Obviously, clearly, they cannot move from one place to other. Okay, it's impossible for plants to move from one place to other, but they can move. So the first and the foremost speciality of living things are that the living things move from one place to other. Okay, the living things move from one place to other. Now, the second important thing is, or a feature of a living thing is, living things breathe. Living things breathe. We know breathing is a process of taking in the oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Okay, so the process of taking in oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide is called breathing, right? And this is done by all animals, we know. Animals especially have an organ called nose through which they take in the oxygen and leave out the carbon dioxide. Huh? Elephants have long trunks, isn't it? Through which they breathe. Now, fish, water animals like a fish have a special organ by the side which is called gills. What is it called? Gills. And the aquatic animal or the water animals usually breathe through the gills. Okay, so all animals have this speciality that they breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. So all birds, animals, insects, everything breathe. What about plants? Plants are also living things, we know. Do plants breathe? Do plants breathe? See, plants are the things in the world which absorb carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. Okay, so plants also do breathe, but they breathe carbon dioxide and leave out oxygen. We breathe oxygen in and we breathe carbon dioxide out. But what does the plants do? Yes, plants breathe in carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen. Okay, so just like the other living things on this earth, plants also are living things because they breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. So all animals, plants, birds, insects, everything are living things because they breathe. Right?